Today we're ranking the top 32 quarterbacks in the NFL. I'm sure everybody's going to agree. Some quick ground rules before we get into the show today. We had the same pool of quarterbacks, about 40 of them. We both ranked them as if we were the GM and we needed a starter for week 1 of next year, assuming that everybody's healthy across the league. I compiled those lists, got an average grade, and that is the list you'll see in today's episode. Also, there will be no hiding as we've done in recent years. My boxes, as far as my rankings, will be in the green ones. Amir's will be in the red. So that way, if you want to be mad at somebody for why your quarterback is much lower or higher on the list than you expected, well, there's your reason. Amir, welcome to the show. It's the biggest show of the offseason, basically.
I'm excited, man. This is hard. This is tough. I mean, we said it the entire season. I said it last year. The top 5 is solidified, and even the top 5 is interchangeable in my opinion. And it's like after that, I think anywhere from like 6 all the way to like freaking 15 or 16 is interchangeable. It's weird. This league is loaded. It's difficult. And I think we should focus not so much on the rankings itself, but as to our criteria and as to why we have guys higher than the other.
Absolutely. Look, Amir might, take into account health more than myself or, one statistic like passing completion percentage, right? The ability to protect the football or the ability to have a lot of clutch moments. He may value those things more than myself, so it's not necessarily he thinks they're that much worse or better than the rest of the pool. It's just a certain thing that we both look for in the quarterbacks that we would like to lead our franchises. Let's not waste any more time, man. Let's get into the honorable mentions, and we have 3 very young quarterbacks, whether if it's by injury, whether lack of sample size, or a lot of inconsistencies. We have Michael Penix Jr., Tyler Shough, and J.J. McCarthy missing the cut today. Those are the notable names off the list. Now, I do want to say, Amir, you had Penix and Shough, if I'm not mistaken, on your list. So, Falcons fans, Saints fans, if you want to be mad, I kind of gave you the reason why I had Penix and Shough off the list. Amir, run me through Penix and Shough and why they made the tail end of your top 32.
Well, the criteria that you told me that, to somewhat follow is who would I trust more in terms of going in the next season.
Yes.
Me personally, I think JJ sucks. I understand it was year 2 for him, but this dude, out of all these guys on the bottom tier of that list, all the way from like 32 to 40, and when you compare between Penix and Shough, he by far had the easiest situation. He had a consistent run game with Jordan Mason and Aaron Jones. The offensive line was good. The defense forced a bunch of turnovers. Having Justin Jefferson, somehow Jettis had a down year with JJ at quarterback. He turned the ball over, overthrows and misreads. He panicked. And with all that being said, he has Kevin O'Connell, who's an offensive mastermind, and he has Brian Flores on defense. He has 2 head coaches on the same roster, and he had a whole year to sit and learn behind Sam Darnold, who was a vet, and to sit and just learn the offense. And it's like when he went out there, he looked completely unprepared. Yeah. He looked good week 1 in that fourth quarter, in that comeback against the Bears, and you kind of saw some flashes, but it was like after that, everything just went downhill, man. Like, it seriously looked bad. And then next thing you know, you got Max Brosmer coming, literally stepping into the offense, and they somehow look half decent with him in the offense, and he sucked. And I don't know how. And when it comes to Penix and Shough, I think they're at the bottom. I'm not the biggest fan of Penix, but I think he's played good enough to be on this list. I think he's somewhat been serviceable to be at that 32. I don't think he's that amazing just yet either. He still has a lot. What's concerning for me is the health. And for Tyler Shough, he honestly could be higher than Penix. But for me, it's difficult because the Saints didn't really have much to play for at the end of the season. They were down a lot, so he kind of built up a lot of yards. But I was impressed with him. His legs were impressive. His arm strength was extremely impressive. His accuracy was impressive at times. And I think going to next season, he's going to be really good. I'm just going to lean a bit towards Penix. And mostly because, too, I mean, he has Stefanski, who has somewhat of a better stable system going in the next year if he's available.
Yeah, for Shough, if we look at every single quarterback's best sample size this year, as far as like a 3 to 4 week span, Tyler Shough might be the top half of the league. That's how good he looked at the tail end of the season. But like you mentioned, there wasn't much to play for. And for Penix, I've just not been impressed, man. He finished his rookie season strong after being thrown into the fire, but this past season, a lot of inconsistencies there with Michael Penix. The flashes are there, but again, it's a consistency thing for me. Health also doesn't work in his favor. So those are the guys that are barely off the list. Let's get into the first tier of the bottom eight. As at the bottom of this, I have Fernando Mendoza, and he made this list because of myself. And the reason is based on the criteria. If going into next season, if I was a GM, I would trust Fernando Mendoza to lead my offense, though he's never taken an NFL snap, over Michael Penix, over Tyler Shuck, guys like that, because Mendoza, he's the complete package that we've seen at the collegiate level, right? He's coming into the NFL, very smart, very poised, a good to great enough at everything there that a quarterback needs to be, and he's going to be the number one pick here in just a few months. So I understand he hasn't taken a snap, but as far as talent and trust wise, I would trust him over the guys that I mentioned a moment ago. Now, after that, we have Russell Wilson. They're tied for 28 with Shador Sanders. Russell Wilson, Amir and I are going off of name value here, going off of his history, trusting his experience, and I'll leave it at that. For Shador, he added life to a lifeless and depleted Browns organization. So for him to go out there and to ball out with all of the expectations in the world on his shoulders, and for him to finish the season the way that he did, I thought was very impressive, man. He was set up to fail, and he succeeded. But I want to ask you, Amir, about these two guys because I am much higher, in fact, 8 spots higher on both of these guys compared to yourself. So I just want your reasoning. Why do you have Jacoby Brissett and Mac Jones as low as you do? Because for myself, when I looked at the way that Jacoby Brissett played, stepping in after Kyler Murray went down, they won more games with Brissett than Kyler Murray, and he just slung the ball all over the field. Now, he actually did a pretty good job at protecting the football, but he just added life to this Arizona Cardinals offense, and he kept them in a lot of games where they probably weren't supposed to be in. And for Mac Jones, it's kind of the same thing. He stepped into a situation where Brock Purdy went down with injury, and San Francisco, they lost Nick Bosa early in the season as well. For Mac Jones to step in, be 5-2, 5-3 as a starter, to protect the football and win a lot of games that they were underdogs in, I thought was huge. So again, I know they're backups, but I thought they played very well this season, and that should continue going forward because it might have been the best that Jacoby and Mac Jones have ever looked. Your thoughts on those two?
For Brissett and Mac Jones, I completely agree with you. They looked amazing this year, especially Mac Jones. I mean, that game on the road against LA, that win, they shouldn't have won that game, and they won that game. They upset the Rams. Brissett, how he looked against the Rams to end the season off. He looked amazing. And they both sort of led these high-powered offenses towards the end of the season. For Brissett, I was extremely impressed because I mean, you had dudes like Michael Wilson come out of nowhere and look amazing.
Yeah.
Now, a lot of it was definitely garbage time yards because they were getting smoked or they were trailing, but still, he still gave them life. He made them look from not a dumpster fire to actually watchable. They actually looked decent, and that's why the run game was absolutely trash. I mean, they lost Benson. James Conner couldn't play, and so the run game was literally just non-existent. And Brissett led a high-powered passing offense. And for San Fran, they had a bunch of injuries. Obviously, Ayuk at that point, it was known that he wasn't coming back at all. George Kittle, I believe he missed some games earlier in the season,
He did.
and I think around that time, to the defense started to somewhat go downhill with injuries as well. And they're really, really young, and so I was extremely impressed with both of them. I just kind of approached those two rankings as I don't really see them starting the season off by week one. I can
Absolutely.
see like
Right.
Russ starting more than them.
That's a fair point. I don't know if I would say Russ is going to start more than a Mac Jones, just because for some reason Russ is now this, the scapegoat across the league, and it's kind of
Yeah.
like a black sheep. No one wants to touch him. Regardless, these are the bottom 5 quarterbacks. So, ladies and gentlemen, move these guys around as you please. We need to talk about some better guys. The next tier of quarterbacks, I would say, we have Tua Tagovailoa, who I have very low on the list, and we'll talk about. Kirko Cousins, they're right above them. They're both tied at 26. And then Daniel Jones, Vanilla Vic at 25. Amir, your thoughts on these 3 quarterbacks before I get into Tua?
The toughest guy to rank on his list for me was Daniel Jones. It was
Yeah.
tough. He's looked good this past season. 2 seasons ago, he struggled. The season before that season, he looked really good. And so I think this is the third year where he's looked actually serviceable. And, I feel bad that he got hurt. It wasn't really his fault. The O line, they got worse. He dealt with a bunch of injuries, had the calf injury, then the Achilles, and now he's going to be out for pretty much all of next season, if
Yeah.
I'm assuming.
Yeah.
And it's unfortunate because he finally found a system where it was truly serviceable to him. And then they play a straight up gauntlet schedule where he's getting beat up every week. And it's like, I mean, it's games where Jonathan Taylor, I mean, he slows down and he can't really get going anymore because they're playing against these crazy defenses and these crazy teams.
Yeah.
And I feel bad because everyone was rooting for them. I think they started the season off, what, like 6-1
Eight
or
and one,
six
I
and two or
think.
whatever. Yeah, I mean, like, that's crazy. And it's like, they go ahead and they play against the straight gauntlet teams and they get abused. And like, I mean, they went ahead and played against Pittsburgh at Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
Um,
We picked Pittsburgh in that one.
right? And so they go ahead and play against Atlanta, which at that point Atlanta they I think they were actually like somewhat looking pretty good at that point. The defense was. Then they play against Kansas City, a pissed off KC team. Then they play against Houston's defense. Then Jacksonville.
Yeah.
That was extremely hot at that moment, and he just
Yes.
gets railed with injuries. And I have him here because his arm talent got better this past season.
Absolutely.
I think his mobility will be good enough when he gets back. And still, I just think with him being in different systems, I would just trust him more to go out there and just start than these guys underneath him.
Yeah, yeah. For me, look, for him to go 8-1, 9-1, however the Colts started the season, to be the number one seed in the AFC, which has a lot of star-studded quarterbacks, and for him to be one of the higher completion percentages, he protected the football and he won a lot of close games. That was impressive for me. That was no doubt the best that he's ever looked, and that's why I have him all the way up at 24. Behind him, we have Kirk Cousins. Look, he's a veteran backup, a guy that can step in and, step out at certain moments, really showing you that, well, there's a reason why he's been in the league for so long. He's very smart and surgical. Amir, I have Tua Tagovailoa all the way down at 31. And as far as the criteria goes of just simply trusting a quarterback, I have zero, if not negative trust in a Tua Tagovailoa. A guy that, you have the injury concerns, right? He's brittle. A guy that his confidence, his love for the game seems to be gone, especially over the last few years and how it's gone in Miami. And on top of that, you can't trust this guy outside of Miami and in games under 50 degrees, or let alone, hey, if he plays a big time game in all of these big time environments, he is losing. And it's very hard for me to say I want Tua as my quarterback on any team at any level because of all of the big time concerns when you need the quarterback the most. Your thoughts on Tua, and looks like you also have him fairly low on your list.
Yeah, I mean, like the weather is a huge issue for me, and we've been seeing these stats for the past 4 years now. The fact that they've been the Dolphins historically, but primarily Tua, he's been terrible in
Yes.
games under 40 degrees. Like 40 degrees, I mean, 40 degrees for us is warm. Like
Yeah.
right
Yeah.
now, it's 40 degrees, and I walk outside, and it's somewhat warm.
Yeah.
And it's like on top of that, it's like even when it's in his favor, when he's at home, when his weapons are fully healthy, and he plays against a good team, he plays terrible. I mean, like when he plays against Buffalo, he sees ghost. Like he's terrified.
Yeah.
Buffalo's defense has not been good the past few years, and he plays them, and he's absolute ghost. And it's like games like that, it throws me off. And is on top of that, he's never healthy, and that's a huge issue for me. It's like
Yeah.
at least when you're healthy, I at least want to see flashes. I want to see consistency, but it's like you can't even stay healthy. And when you are healthy, when you're at your best, it's not that good. You choke, you turn the ball over. And so for me, I have him at 27. He honestly should be lower.
Yeah, for me again, I thought I was a bit harsh on him, but just to clarify, for you guys at home, when we talk about assuming full health, we mean that these guys are going to be healthy for week one. Anything that happens after week one, well, we have to take their injury history into account. So Tua, that also played a reason why he's so low on my list. Let's move into the next eight as we approach the middle of the pack quarterbacks, and we're going to start at the bottom of this. 21 through 24 with four very young quarterbacks. We have Jackson Dart at 24, Kyler Murray. He's not really that young, but hey, he plays like a young quarterback. He's at 23. 22 is Bryce Young and Cam Ward, two former first round picks there at 21 and 22. Amir, any thoughts on these guys in general? Jackson Dart looks like he has solidified his role. Bryce Young has just had his best year yet. Cam Ward showed a lot of flashes, but it was at the tail end of the season with nothing to play for. And Kyler looks like he's on the move. Thoughts on these four?
I want to disrespect Jackson Dart. Obviously, we viewed him as a prospect pick,
Yes.
and and he was one of those guys where I was scared that he started off too early. I mean, they literally benched Russ and blamed Russ for three losses after 3 games, and they
Yeah.
just threw Jackson Dart in there. And Dart looked good. I mean, the offense looked serviceable. I mean, it looked better, better with him and then Russ. And I want to shout out Brian Daboll because now he literally made Jackson Dart look great. I mean, Jackson Dart has some good games against Denver, against Philly, some big time wins as a young quarterback. Took care of the football, which I was concerned about that as well. And I respect him a lot. And Bryce Young and Kyler, Bryce Young, he looks better, but it's like slowly but
Yeah.
surely.
Yeah.
And I think next year, I'm not going to say that's his end all be all year, but I at least want to see a bigger jump and just a bit more consistency. The Panthers should be better next year. I think they're going to be. I mean, I think they could very well win a division next year
Yeah.
easily.
Yeah.
Like seriously, I think they will. I think they can win close to 10 games. It might sound crazy, and when it comes to Kyler, I love Kyler, but he hasn't really gotten better since 2021, and that's concerning for me. It's concerning. I mean, like,
That's
he literally hasn't
heartbreaking.
gotten better.
That's heartbreaking. You know how much I love Kyler
Yeah.
Murray, the dachshund in the desert. I wanted him to succeed, man. I'm like a pseudo Arizona fan. Like I like the Diamondbacks, I like the Cardinals. For some reason, I've just kind of, I guess favored Arizona teams. And Kyler Murray was just a fun player to watch. I didn't really like him in college, but in the pros, I got behind him really quickly. Maybe it was just because of how good he looked early on. But quick thoughts on Cam Ward. Do you think with a Brian Daboll offensive coach or excuse me, offensive coordinator addition, do you think he can jump into, let's say, the top 15, top 14 range next season because of how good he looked at the end of this year?
I think he can, man. I think he's that talented. I think arm talent alone, he's top 5 to top 10 in the league
Yeah.
easily. I
Yeah, I
mean,
mean,
like
let's
the
get him a
accuracy.
receiver not named Chamir DK.
I mean, seriously. I mean, seriously. I mean, like his receiving core is flat out terrible.
Yeah.
I think Okonkwo is underrated as a tight
Yes.
end. I think he's really solid. I
Love
thought
Chig.
the run game started the season off bad. Once it started to pick up, primarily against us. I forget who they played the week before us, but around that range, it started to pick up a little bit, and um, and you kind of saw just the burden lighten up on Cam Ward. He started to play a bit more free, and I think getting Brian Daboll, we all know his track record. He developed Jackson Dart or year one. He developed Josh Allen. And I thought he should have got the head coaching job in Buffalo.
I agree.
And now he's getting Cam Ward. And also you have Robert Saleh as your D coordinator. And the defense isn't too far gone. The defense is actually somewhat serviceable. And you just saw Robert Saleh make a Niners defense that was extremely young and plagued with injuries look somewhat decent. I think they're in good hands. I think the defense is going to be better. I think Brian Dable is going to find a way to boost that run game up. He's going to target a better offensive line and maybe snag a receiver that's underrated later in the draft. And we've already looked at receivers. There's some solid receivers in the
Yeah.
draft as well. I think Cam Moore is going to have a great year. I think they should easily win around that 7 to 8 game range, and he looks really good this year.
Yeah, let's not forget they have the fourth overall pick. So if they want to go offensive line with a Francis Maui Noah, if they want to go Arvell Reese, Ruben Bain, a player of that caliber, well, Robert Saleh is going to have this pick of the litter. They're at pick number 4. They're going to get a premium player on that defense, no doubt about it. The next tier of quarterbacks, we're going to have Aaron Rodgers at 20, Brock Purdy at 19, and tied at 17, we have Bo Nix and C.J.
Wow.
Stroud. For Aaron Rodgers, it just feels disrespectful to have him outside of a top 20 quarterback. Even though last year there was a lot of times where he didn't look the greatest, it's still Aaron Rodgers. And I think based on that alone, I would trust him in a one season setting over some of the younger quarterbacks under him. For Brock Purdy, I had above Bo Nix and CJ Stroud. We kind of flipped these quarterbacks as you see on the left side of your screen. For me, Purdy just continues to do great things. When he's healthy, he protects the football, he wins big time games, and he leads them far into the playoffs. That's just what he does next to Kyle Shanahan. For CJ Stroud, man, Amir, he took a big hit from last year's list, from my own, till this year, all the way down at 19. I get it. He didn't have a great offensive line. Nico Collins was in 1 week, out the next two. You got to the playoffs. You didn't have your running backs. Dalton Schultz goes down, and you end up throwing 4 interceptions in some of the biggest games of the season. That's just stuff that can't happen. I get you're really going out there and playing with nothing, but you cannot turn the ball over 4 times. You cannot really have the body language that CJ Stroud did. And ultimately, he peaked in his rookie season. Once these defenses have figured out a way to get under or to get after CJ Stroud, his play has gradually regressed as far as his effectiveness on the field. As far as Bo Nix, look, I love him. I won a fantasy championship with him this year. He's great at using his legs, and I think 18 is too low, but that goes to show how talented the quarterbacks are in the league today. Bo Nix, I like him. He's continuing to improve in every element of his game, and he plays like an experienced quarterback, even though he's only had 2 years in the NFL. So 18 seems low, but again, there's a lot of great quarterbacks in the NFL. Amir, your thoughts on 17 through 20?
CJ Stroud, for me, this has been one of the most saddest things to watch. And you know me, like when I rank guys, when I rank teams, when I compare guys' legacies, I don't bash a guy for losing because a lot of it is situation based, especially in the game of football. But it's like sometimes your situation can be bad, and I just ask that you at least look halfway decent. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
yeah,
Like at least look halfway decent. Like with Lamar, when we compare him to Mahomes or Josh Allen or Burrow, we obviously criticize him in that tier, but we're not going to overly criticize him because his situation has been bad and he at least has looked somewhat decent. You know what I mean? But it's like Stroud this past year, Nico Collins was out, Dalton Schultz was out. I completely understand. And they struggled offensively, and the O line was bad. But throwing 4 picks and just missing reads. I mean, the Patriots eliminating one side of the field and
yeah.
running man to man. This got the ball slipping out of his hands. He's slipping, falling on the ground. And it's like you can use the excuse for Nico Collins, but the week before against Pittsburgh, he still didn't look that good. I mean,
No.
that was a ball game until like the last quarter and a half, and the defense took over. The offense didn't look that good then. And it's like even to end the regular season off, the offense still didn't look that great. Stroud still looked like he was slowing down his momentum a little bit. And that's concerning for me. And it's like I don't want to just say he peaked in his rookie season, but that might have been just like a Cinderella run, and that might have been one of their only chances to actually do something in a
Yeah,
while.
I mean, look, I want to cut him some grace because another guy that we forget about is Joe Mixon, a guy that 2 years ago was a Pro Bowl level running back, just wasn't there, right? All season they were like, okay, he's going to come back eventually. He's going to come back from this foot eventually. And then he just kept getting pushed off, and then they just didn't have him. And they're relying on Woody Marks most weeks to be their main offensive outlet. And that's why I want to cut him some grace. But yeah, you got to play better, right? As a quarterback, you got to elevate the guys around you. And outside of Jaden Higgins, which by the way was a my guy, stepping up in certain moments of the year, you got to get other guys to step up. And they just didn't have that there in Houston. Any thoughts on Rodgers, Purdy, or Bo Nix before we move on, Amir?
So you know, Purdy's my guy. I love him.
Yeah,
I think the guys over them or over him. Purdy, Purdy for me, he kind of has like that same mindset as like Sam Darnold, in my opinion. One, he's an underdog, and two, you kind of see him his good a lot of times outweighs his bad, and I appreciate that about him.
yeah,
I just for me, Purdy, the health, he's in and out the lineup every single season, then you got to rely on a Mac Jones or a backup quarterback. I mean, you even see Kyle Shanahan and San Fran, they're doing everything they can to retain Mac Jones because Purdy, he's always hurt. And
yeah.
I hate that. And it's like you do see some bad moments from him. And I just haven't seen a consistent put together year since 2023. And so I'm waiting on that. I think he's easily going to slide up. And the team, I mean, they've been riddled with injuries last season and this past season, so I cut him a little bit of slack. Me personally, I just trust Bo Nix a bit more. Stroud, the situation is terrible, but if he had Shanahan, I would lean towards him just a tiny bit, just to be a bit more available. So
Yeah, 2 years in a row. I got Purdy a couple spots ahead of you. Maybe he's my guy now, Amir. No. We're going to take a small break and then we'll get into the top half of the league. Moving into the top 16, these are guys that statistically we look at to be average to above average quarterbacks. And of course, you move higher up the ladder. But at 16 is Baker Mayfield. And look, I love Baker Mayfield except for draft night. But ultimately, he's a gunslinger. He's having great 8 to 10 week stretches every single season. The downfall with Baker is when December hits. When December and on hits going into the playoffs, especially, he has not elevated this offense. He has not stepped up, and he was not the same player in the second half of the years, often than what he was in the first half of the years. Because again, a lot of the times in the first half of the years, he looks like the MVP of the league. Amir, your thoughts on Baker Mayfield? You have him 4 spots lower than myself.
I love Baker. I respect him. You brought it up. Us being Browns fans, we have a certain attachment to him. The thing that's frustrating for me, and we've seen it since Cleveland, we try to find every reason to not put some losses on him. And he was in a bad situation beginning of the year, right? And we
Yeah.
kept bringing it up. He had the miraculous comeback wins. They somehow beat Seattle. That was a great win. They somehow, I mean, made games interesting early on, and we were happy to watch them. But it's like once mid-November hit, he completely hit a decline. Mike Evans came back, and then people were like, "Oh my goodness, the offense is going to look so much better." It somehow still looked terrible. Chris Godwin came back. The offense still was terrible,
Yeah.
and the O line was bad. The defense was bad, but still, it's like the game that did it for me. It was the game in November when they lost by 30 against the Rams, where he threw like 9 of 19, only threw for 40 yards. I mean, missed throws, bad reads, and a Rams defense that's not that good in
No.
the back end, and he couldn't throw to anybody. I mean, it was just bad reads and bad throws. I mean, even through him getting pressure, but at some point, I'm like, man, this is tough, and it happens every single year. And maybe I should be a bit more graceful to him, but I'm having a hard time ranking him, a very hard time.
Yeah, look, for Baker Mayfield, when it comes to if I was a player, like if I was in your situation where I was just a great athlete, if I had to pick a quarterback that I just wanted to play for to be my leader, Baker's got to be top
Yes.
three for me, man. It's not strictly based on talent, but it's just his mentality, the way that he gets after things. Baker is so fun to watch in that regard, but again, consistencies issues in the biggest games on the tail end of the seasons. That's kind of why he got knocked down a couple spots for me, as well as Amir. Now, this is going to ruffle some feathers, no pun intended, because they are the Eagles. But Jalen Hurts is down here at number 15. Look, 2 years ago, great season, led the Eagles to the postseason, excuse me, to the Super Bowl, and they were one of the most dominant Super Bowl winning teams we've seen in the last decade, if not ever. Jalen Hurts this past year, though, change of offensive coordinator, and he looked like his old self, where the offense really couldn't trust his arm. They were really run the ball on the first two downs. Then we're going to throw a deep ball to Devontae Smith or Dallas Goedert or A.J. Brown, and oftentimes it was off target. There's too many inconsistencies with his arm, and at the end of the day, as great as Jalen Hurts is as a leader, as someone with his legs, the quarterback, the most important thing about a quarterback is your arm, your decision making, your ability to make big time throws. And there was way too many times where this team was limited because Jalen Hurts wasn't able to make those throws and do it consistently. So that's why he dropped a fair amount on my list here. Amir, I would love your thoughts on Jalen Hurts because I understand that Eagles fans they're gonna throw some cheesesteaks at us and probably put us through some tables.
I think for Hurts, I think that 13 to 15 range is perfect. People will argue he should be a top 10 quarterback. I disagree. And they're going to bring up his resume, Super Bowl MVP, a Super Bowl win, two Super Bowl appearances. And it's like, those are all team accomplishments. And this is, I mean, since 2022, this is the fourth season in a row where he's been the biggest concern for the team. It hasn't been the run game. It hasn't been the offensive line. It hasn't been the defense. Oh, aside from 23 was the defense, but it's primarily been Jalen Hurts. On
Yeah.
offense, the weak league has been Jalen Hurts, and they keep on bringing up the fact that I mean, he's had a different coordinator almost every year since college, which I understand that's you showing him some grace. But even through all that, the consistent theme for Philly and the consistent question on offensively has been Jalen Hurts every single time,
Yeah.
and it gets to a point where it's like even if you have different coordinators, you would think at least one you would mesh well with, and you wouldn't be the biggest concern. And that's my biggest issue with Jalen Hurts. There's no reason why Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown and Dallas Goedert should be getting underused in an offense throughout the season, especially A.J. Brown. And that's what's frustrating for me. And last year, it got to a point where it's like, of course, if Saquon's going to run for 2,000 yards
Right.
and you can give him the ball 25 times a game, of course, you're going to dominate through the playoffs. And of course, your life is going to be so much easier. And a defense that was so elite this past year and the year before, he's put in situations where he has everything he can to succeed. Like if he plays better, AJ Brown is happier. The chemistry of the offense is flowing a bit better. Devontae Smith is happier. Everything is flowing so much more smooth. You don't have to rely on Saquon to get the ball a bunch of times. And I brought it up last season in the playoffs. I thought this year they were going to be good, but they were going to hit a decline because I
Yeah.
thought they literally fed Saquon so much. It's no way he's going to be able to go through that same physical torture again this season and put up 2,000 yards a game. And you
Yeah.
saw it happen. He looked fatigued off jump.
Yeah, another great leader, but I think alarmingly, some people are going to see my rankings and say, why you got Baker over Jalen Hurts? They both bring a great element with their legs, Baker, at least I can trust him at times to throw the ball down the field and to challenge the secondary. Jalen Hurts, I don't think teams fear his arm. Now, he does have games like the Super Bowl 2 years ago, or hey, the Super Bowl the first time against the Chiefs, where he can go out there and light it up and have these magical performances where he looks like a top five quarterback in the league, but he does that and then disappears for the next six. And that just can't happen at the most important position, especially like you mentioned, with all the weapons that he has. Let's move on. This is going to cause some controversy, I'm sure. Seahawks fans, another bird team that's probably going to come after me. Sam Darnold is at 14, and Amir has him inside his top 10. I have him at 16. Basic reasoning here. Sam Darnold had a great defense, and yes, he played the best football of his career in the playoffs, right? I think the game that we both looked at to be the actual Super Bowl against the Rams there in the NFC title game, he would have been the MVP of that game. Best game of his career, no doubt about it. But I think that there's other quarterbacks like a Baker Mayfield, like a Bo Nix, guys like that that could have stepped in and done exactly what Sam Darnold did in that system. Now, Sam Darnold, again, playing the best football of his career, incredible comeback story. But as far as a quarterback that I'm going to trust next year, I think there's going to be a lot of quarterbacks around the league that I would trust more based on what they've done consistently over the years or just strictly based on talent. Amir, you have Sam Darnold at 9. Run us through this one.
So the reason why I've Darnold at 9, and I brought it up throughout the season, I think his ceiling as a quarterback isn't as high as a lot of these guys. But the thing I love about Darnold the past 2 seasons, he seems like the most schematic friendly quarterback, in this list, one of. And it's like I feel like when I'm watching him the past 2 years primarily, he sort of shifted his game to where he looked like he's super coachable. You know, he's going to be somewhat consistent. You know, he's going to have those games, right, where he's a dud, where he might turn the ball over 3, 4 times, right? He might, fumble the ball. He might have those moments, but it's like he can also put together big games while also being coachable, allowing the system to run
Yeah.
smoothly. And it's like when I watched him the past 2 years, I mean, it looked super, super smooth watching him operate in the offense. And especially this past year, what he did in the playoffs, him not turning the ball over not one time, you saw him elevate his ceiling even higher. I mean, that game against the Rams, him outperforming Stafford in the second time in the season, that was
Yeah.
extremely impressive. And I thought the Super Bowl wasn't even in the playoffs. I thought it was in the regular season against the Rams to take the 1 seed. Because after that, him outperforming Stafford, them coming back in that second half, and him being that dominant, the Rams went downhill, and I thought the Rams were the only team in the playoffs that were somewhat going to have a chance at stopping them. And
Yeah.
you saw the Rams. I mean, they didn't recover after that game. The defense got worse, and he torched them. And it's like you go to the playoffs against New England, and I think even though Kubiak is a great offensive mastermind, and even though the defense was good, offensively they still were a top five offense, and they still didn't have that great load of weapons. I mean,
No.
Charbonnet
No.
and Kenneth Walker, the biggest complaint all season long was that the run game was a bit slacking a bit, and eventually it picked up, but like the run game was slacking a large part of the season. Yes, JSN is good, but Cooper Kupp is old. Outside of that, Torrey Horton, he was starting to pick up, but he got hurt and missed the
AJ
season.
Barner was solid.
Right? I mean, Barner was solid, but it's like he's not like a Pro Bowl tight
Yeah.
end, and so it's like I mean they don't really have an absolute loaded offense, and I thought for that, I mean I thought he played good enough to earn this top 10 spot in the playoffs.
Yeah, for me, look, there's no quarterback that's won more games in a 2 year span in NFL history than Sam Darnold. So it's
Crazy.
hard to argue with a top 10 ranking. Personally, I might be naive. I might be thinking of his past too much, but I think based on that team last year, I think you could have put a lot of quarterbacks there running the show for Seattle, and they would have done the same thing. One of those quarterbacks being Caleb Williams. He is a top 10 quarterback for me, just outside of Amir's top 10, but he comes in at number 13 on our collective list. Look, Caleb Williams, the way that he looked under Ben Johnson was night and day different than what he did in his rookie season. The numbers may not tell you that, but as far as effectiveness, as far as, really challenging the defense consistently with his arms, his legs, really elevated this entire offense and was a huge reason why they were able to get the number 2 seed in a loaded NFC conference. So Caleb Williams for me right now, I think he's the favorite to win the MVP next season, and for good reason. This offense is electric. They're fun. Ben Johnson calls the shots, and they get up and down. I just really enjoyed what I saw from Caleb Williams this past season. Amir, your thoughts on Caleb before we get into a bit of a chunk of this list here?
I love Caleb. I think he's piecing things together. In my opinion, the reason why I have Darnold way over him, the reason why I have these guys over him, is because I mean it's just games where Caleb, he does a good job of taking care of the football. I thought he did really good the past 2 seasons. It is not talked about enough. I think he's only thrown 7 picks this past season, which is extremely impressive. The issue that I have is like it is so many games, primarily through like the regular season. It was like 5 straight games where they were like one score games and where he would just
Yeah.
be flat. He'll be flat the first 3 quarters, and then he would perform in the fourth quarter. And yes, he won those games, but it is way too many moments where this dude would disappear the first 3 quarters. We'll sit there like, what's going on? The run game is going, the defense is forcing turnovers. Like what's going on? And you're playing against a team like the Bears, or not the Bears, but like the Bengals, where that shouldn't have even been a game. And then you play against the Giants, that shouldn't have been a game. And you play against Minnesota with JJ McCarthy at quarterback, that shouldn't have been a game either, in my opinion. And it's just too many games where he starts off flat and he finishes strong. But with all that being said, I love what he did in the playoffs. I love what he's done last year. I love what he did the past or 2 seasons ago with Eberflus, with him being a terrible coach, terrible clock management, terrible defense. I thought he's done really, really good. For me, I just trust Darnold a bit more. Just due to
Hmm.
his ceiling as a quarterback, also, I love seeing his performances of him really, performing at the biggest stage a bit more. And also, too, I think going into next year, Caleb is going to be great. I'm just a bit more impressed with the quarterbacks I have over him.
Yeah, interesting for you, Amir. I'm just kind of putting these things together as the list is coming to a close. You have Caleb, who was the first pick in that draft class, as the third highest quarterback on your list, 2 years into their careers. Just something to keep in mind, because I didn't have Caleb as my favorite quarterback in that year's class. We'll talk about that guy in a moment. At number 12 and at number 11, we have one guy exactly at the same spot. Then we have a 7 spot difference with Jared Goff. He comes in as the overall 12th quarterback with the averages, and Trevor Lawrence is 1 spot above him. Look, Trevor Lawrence played the best football of his career this entire season, but most notably from like week 6 on. From week 6 on, they were one of the best teams in the league. They won like 10 or 11 straight games, went to the playoffs. They should have won the game against Buffalo, but came up short at the end. He played the best football of his career second half of the year, right? And I think his ability to throw for like 34 touchdowns. He had less than 10 turnovers on the season. This was the Trevor Lawrence that he was drafted to be, and I think as long as this connection continues to grow with him and Liam Cohen, we're going to continue to see this version of T-Law for years to come, and I think we're going to be spoiled as NFL fans. And as far as Jared Goff, look, he's thrown for 4,000 yards religiously at this point now in his career with multiple coordinators, different teams, and he's protecting the football. He's throwing for 4,000 yards and over 30 touchdowns with less than 10 turnovers, season in and season out. So for me, I like what I see from Jared Goff. He's one of the smartest quarterbacks in the league. And I think Jared Goff for me is Sam Darnold for you. And I think that's reflective in our rankings as they're pretty much flip flopped if you look at them. I don't know. I trust what I've seen from Jared Goff for the longer span of time than the 1 year of elite Sam Darnold, if that makes sense. Your thoughts on Trevor Lawrence and Jared Goff? I think they are kind of in the same tier.
You want to talk about somebody that's been in the absolute worst possible situations every year? That's Trevor Lawrence.
Yeah.
He's been in some garbage situations, and he still managed to have a playoff win. He still managed to have somewhat productive seasons, and that's on top of him having terrible coaches, a terrible defense every single year. That's on top of his team being filled with injuries. I mean, them having to start Travis Hunter on both sides this year because the receiving core was slacking, and I'm still looking great. They get Jacoby Myers. You saw them at least somewhat get a pass game going because Brian Thomas decided to start catching passes, and it's like even through all that, I mean, he ended the season off only turning the ball over 1 time in the last 8 weeks, and that's amazing. And he didn't play amazing against Buffalo. I thought you played really good, but it's like when you're trying to compete in a head-to-head duel against probably the best player in football, arguably, you're probably going to end up falling short. And Golf, I think I should move Golf a bit higher. You convinced me a bit. I think I'm wrong on this ranking. I was a little harsh on him for the standpoint of I think he's like the last old school quarterback we have in this league, and him not providing much value with mobility, that's a problem that I have. And it's like you saw this past year, you saw both games against Green Bay, him get flat out tortured
Yeah.
behind an O line that was still good because he can't really move. And you saw 2 years ago against the Commanders where he looked terrible. He couldn't really move. He's getting abused. He's getting blown up. And it's like, that's kind of concerning to me. And also, too, even in 2023 against San Fran, I mean, he has some moments, too, where he disappeared. Where even though, I mean, San Fran had no business winning that game, I thought Goff played solid, but still, it's some moments where he could have put that game away. I thought against the Commanders, he should have put that game away. I mean,
Yeah.
the Commanders should not have won that game. And this past season as well, he played really good, even through all the problems, having two first year coordinators, having a lot of injuries defensively and on offense. I thought he played really well, but it's like still, I kind of asked myself, how do I see his ceiling as a quarterback? And I'm a person where I value ceiling raising and I value floor raising, but sometimes a guy's ceiling will outweigh his floor, in my opinion. And so I value T Law's floor a bit higher. I value Jalen Hurts' floor a bit higher, his ability to run and also just perform in big time games. I mean, given those two Super Bowls, he performed at a high level. And so that's why I have him at 15.
Yeah, it's definitely a style, with the lack of mobility in 2025, 2026. It's definitely you have to build an offense certainly around it, whereas a lot of other teams like the Bears, like the Philadelphia Eagles, they have a little bit more flexibility as far as their play calling than the Detroit Lions. But I think I just enjoy the steadiness of certain quarterbacks, and that's why he's all, in my top eight, which I never really thought I would say a couple years ago. At 9 and at number 10, we have Dak Prescott, who I'm a bit lower on than you, and Jordan Love. But I want to say this. I think when you talk about the top 12 quarterbacks, a lot of these guys are interchangeable. I think on Dak's best day, it could be better than T-Law's best day, and vice versa. Throw Jordan Love, Jared Goff into that mix, Caleb Williams as well for myself. All of these guys are interchangeable, but if I had to choose, I think I would lean Dak is the better quarterback. Or excuse me. I think Jared Goff is a better quarterback than Jordan Love, and Jordan Love is better than Dak Prescott. Regardless, for these top two guys, Dak and Jordan Love, of course, we know that I don't know what I'm going with this. I'm just gonna redo it. I can't talk. All right. All right, let's move into the next two quarterbacks, and this is into the top 10. As at number 10, we have my favorite quarterback in the league, the best looking quarterback in the league, Jordan Love. And at number 9 is Dak Prescott. Now, I'm a little bit lower on Dak Prescott than you, but as we've talked about off the show, when you talk about these top 12 quarterbacks, a lot of these guys are interchangeable. On their best day, they can be a lot higher than where we currently have them, and vice versa. But for Jordan Love, he is so good on tape. He is so freaking talented. And I've been a fan of this guy since Utah State, and Amir can vouch for me in that statement. For Jordan Love, the issues with him are, at the end of the season with all the injuries that this team has, and you want to cut him some slack in that regard. But consistently, when this team gets to the playoffs, or hey, even into that last month of the season, they always seem to tail off, and then they go into the playoffs. And whether if they're injured or Jordan Love's just not playing great, they always fizzle out in the first round. And that's just something you have to weigh, especially when you take into account. I do think that they have a really good head coach. I do think that they have a well oiled system there in Green Bay where there is a decent amount of talent on this roster. There are some flaws, yes. Tucker Kraft going down with a season ending injury definitely hurts. Josh Jacobs dealing with some injuries at the end of the season. The offensive line has never been healthy for Jordan Love outside of maybe one or two players. And then he's never really had a true number one wide receiver. That's definitely hurt his ceiling. But as far as the flashes we see from Jordan Love, and how well he plays from week 1 to like week 15, that I have to take into account. And that's why he's still at number 9 on my list. Dak Prescott is Dak Prescott. He's going to throw for 4,000 yards, protect the football, and come up short in the playoffs. Amir, your thoughts on these two?
So when it comes to Dak, Jordan Love, and Goff, these three guys that we're talking about right here, for me, I think we can all agree on something. You see these moments on the biggest stage where they fizzle out, where they kind of struggle a bit. I think T Law easily has been in the worst situation out of these three For me, the reason why golf isn't higher, and I want to show some grace to Jordan Love. He has some moments where Toyota-thon, he plays great.
Yeah.
He gets in these big time games in December and November where he just looks not that good, and the playoffs he doesn't look that good. But I just kind of look at it from the standpoint of one, he provides more value with his mobility. In my
Yes.
opinion, I think he has better arm talent than Goff. In Goff, he's a safe floor quarterback. But then I asked the question in this situation, I think Love's ceiling is a bit higher. And I kind of just think, I mean, imagine if Goff had to throw the football to Golden, Wicks, and the offense be so heavily reliant on Josh Jacobs to the point where it's like offensively, I think Green Bay has to do a better job of drafting receivers. And I couldn't imagine if Jay Love had Jameer Gibbs, had freaking David Montgomery,
Hey, don't
Laporta,
convince
Amon
me now to
Ross.
put Jordan Love higher than Jared Goff.
I mean, JLo. I mean, I'm just envisioning
I'll
Jordan
put
Love.
Jordan Love top three.
I mean, I'm just thinking about these weapons in Detroit. Imagine if Jordan Love had this. I think he would be elite. And I'm looking at Dak Prescott. I mean, this is his fourth season in his career where he played at an MVP caliber. I'm just looking at these numbers in 2019 where he almost threw for 5,000 yards. He had that season in 2021 where he threw for almost 40 touchdowns and 4,500 yards. In 2023, I know you remember that season. He was in the MVP race, the season Lamar won it, where he
Yep.
threw for less than 10 picks. 4,500 yards and 36 touchdowns. And now this season, where the defense is terrible, and the Cowboys, this is the third season in a row where the defense has been flat out garbage. And Dak is still making the team somewhat compete against really good teams every single season. And for Goff, I love Goff, but it's just no way I can look at what he did against the Patriots in 2018. I get it. He was young. It was a really good defense, but he was non-existent a lot of times in that playoffs. Fast forward 2023 against the Niners, he didn't look like a true vet in that game. He looked like a guy that was in like year three, like he was back on the Rams. The game against the Commanders, he was flat out terrible. He turned the ball over four times, five times. That was bad, and it's just no way I can watch him last year against the Commanders and just think that if I was to go ahead and give Jalen Hurts these weapons, Jordan Love these weapons, Dak Prescott these weapons, they couldn't do more. Because I mean, we've seen Hurts in two Super Bowls; he's played amazing.
Yeah. I just love how this has turned into a rant and a slander on Jared Goff, like probably one of the nicest people we'll meet.
Yeah,
But that, of course, take a good look at this. This is the above average, technically, again, above average quarterbacks, guys that all have an argument to be in the top 10 on their best day. But let's get into the top eight quarterbacks, and it's going to start off with a controversial take. Now, Amir, we've talked, of course, we've been friends for a very long time. We were both very high on Drake May, and there is legitimate footage on this channel where I had Drake May as my favorite quarterback in that draft class over Caleb Williams, over Jaden Daniels. And that's translated to the league, right? Now, I didn't think, despite my belief in him as a prospect, I didn't think he was going to lead a 14-win team to the Super Bowl and be an MVP candidate in just his second season. There's no way that I ever would have believed you if you told me that was the case before he was drafted, especially to the New England Patriots with no wide receiver weapons. But I have him down here at 13 because I want to temper my expectations. 2 years ago, we had the magical rookie season from CJ Stroud, and a lot of people jolted him up into their top five, top six quarterbacks, and then he kind of fizzled out. Jaden Daniels, same exact thing last year, where this year he had a lot of injuries, and we'll talk about him in a moment. But again, he's going to fall down a lot of quarterback rankings. I don't want to put that pressure and that expectation on Drake May, even though he's reached extremely high highs. So I have him at 13. I'm a fan of the player. I don't want my bias to get in the way, and that's why I have him as low as I do. But Amir, you have him at number 6. Run me through why you have him as high as you do.
So the reason why I have him at 6, once again, I think he has a high floor and a high ceiling. And that's rare that you see a guy that has also, has both of those. Usually a guy, he might be, bad, in a bad system, and then flat out elite in a really good system. And to be quite frankly, the reason why I'm high on Drake May is I don't even think his offensive talent is that good around him. I don't think it is.
No,
I
it's
mean, like
terrible.
the run game. I mean, there were problems with the run game. throughout the season. Ramondre and then Travion is not getting carries at times. Then the receiving core, I mean, the receiving core is not that good. And this is the second year in a row with a lacking receiving core. He's given a team life. I mean, the Patriots, they won four games the year before last season. And when Drake May stepped in over Brissett, I mean, he had the offense actually looking really, really good. And that's with the bad offensive line. That's with no receivers. That's with a bad run game. And this past season as well, they had a cupcake schedule, but it's like, even against the really good teams at the top of the line, he still played really, really good. Now, the playoff run, it was really, really bad. But the play calling was definitely a bit conservative. But then once again, I think any team in the AFC, they get smoked by Seattle. I think Denver loses to Seattle. The
Yeah.
only team I could see having a chance is Mahomes. If Mahomes is in the Super Bowl, you give him a chance against anybody. I could see Josh Allen putting up a fight and putting no points on the board. Other than that, Houston gets smoked. Pittsburgh gets smoked. I think Denver gets smoked. I'm trying to list off who else is in the playoffs. I
I
think
think Denver
Jacksonville,
would have
they
put
get
up a
smoked.
fight. I don't think that they win the game, but I think Denver would have definitely made it a at least a two-score game.
Yeah, I think Sean Payton, they would have, gave a chance, and with how good the defense is, they would have
Well,
stayed in the
I'm saying
game.
with a healthy Bo Nix. Let me clarify. With a
Okay,
healthy
yeah.
Bo Nix.
Right, yeah. Yeah, but it's like for me, I could also see Bo Nix turning the ball over two, three times as well. And for Drake May, I mean, I don't think his team offensively is that good. I mean, for him throwing 31 touchdowns to only 8 picks and throwing for almost 4,500 yards, I thought he played great. I have him at 6 because I think if he's on Detroit, he's amazing. I think if he's even on Green Bay, I think he's flat out better than all these guys. I think even if he has Liam Cohen with the offense this loaded, I think he's thrown for 40 touchdowns. I think if he has Sean McVay, he's thrown for 40 touchdowns.
Yeah.
I think he's amazing. I think the guys underneath him, they have even better situations, and he's still outperforming them.
Yeah, Diggs is not a number one option anymore. He's a number two at best here. And Drake May was able to bring a number two wide receiver in Stephon Diggs, Pop Douglas, some good running backs, and Hunter Henry to the Super Bowl. Definitely deserves his flowers in that regard. But let's move on. At number seven, I'm a lot higher on him than you, maybe this shocked me, right? Because last year it was kind of flip flop where I was tempering my expectations, and you had him a lot higher. But it's Jaden Daniels at number seven, and we talked about this briefly before we started recording today's show. Where outside of that top three, top four, some of these guys, man, yes, we know they have the talent, but the production's not always there, right? Whether if they had a down year or they're just not taking that next step, there's not a lot to get excited about here in like the 5, 6, 7 range. But for Jaden Daniels, look, before he got hurt last season, his first month and a half, he looked like an MVP candidate where he was still throwing 200 to 250 yards a game, protecting the football, using his legs. And he does that maybe better than anybody else in the league today because Lamar doesn't run as much as he used to. So he might be the best mobile quarterback in the game, and he can still throw the ball with the best of them, which is something I didn't really expect to see out of him as a prospect coming into the league. But look, I know it was a down year for Washington, but as far as the talent goes, and as far as what he was able to accomplish in his rookie season, I don't want to forget about it so quickly. So he's at number seven for our list today, but number six for me. Amir, you have him down at number 10. Is this strictly because of the injuries from last season?
Yeah, it is, and also too, you know, I love Jaden Daniels. I think I had him at 6 last season. No, I had him
Yeah.
at 5. Oh no, 6. I had him at I had Stafford at 5 and Jaden Daniels at 6. So I mean, the reason why I had Jaden Daniels at 6, and normally I don't even like putting guys in my top 10 as rookies, but I thought he played so good to
Yeah.
the point where I mean, historically so good. I mean, beating that Detroit team, outperforming Jared Goff, who a lot of people would say is a top 10 quarterback, and him playing even good enough against Philly to somewhat even give them a shot. Um,
You're-
I think he deserved to be that high. Is thus for me, I just think this is at a point where 6 through 10, I think they're all so close enough to where you could switch any of them and make them interchangeable, and to where on a year-to-year basis is probably going to switch. And
yeah.
I just think the guys that were available this season, they showed me a lot. They showed me even a bit more than Jay and Daniels did last year, to where I have them a little higher.
Yeah, I think this upcoming year is a big year for Jaden Daniels as far as whether if he's going to shoot up or down these rankings. But making Cliff Kingsbury look good as an offensive play caller, I think that's very impressive. At number six, Collectively, number 7 for the both of us on our list is Justin Herbert. This is one of those guys where it's hard to get excited about ranking him as high
Oh
as we
man,
do because, look, we're going to get to the excuses, right? But he has all the talent in the world. He's just not winning at the highest level. Now we have to add context in here. He didn't have Rashawn Slater for the entire season. That's an all-pro tackle. He didn't have Joe Alt, one of the best tackle prospects I've ever seen, and he's going to be an all-pro lineman probably for the rest of his career. You didn't have either all-pro tackle, and you had, after Joe Alt went down, like the worst offensive line maybe in the last decade. They're trying to protect Justin Herbert as he's getting hit play after play after play, and this offense as a whole dealt with injuries to Omari and Hampton as well. So they didn't have a run game, they didn't have an offensive line, and they got to the playoffs though because Justin Herbert is that talented, but the offense as a whole struggled second half of the season, and I get the reasons behind it, but eventually, man, we can't I guess give him all these outs. Now I'm saying this like he's the 25th ranked quarterback. He's still a top 6 guy. I just, for example, Jaden Daniels was able to elevate all the not bright spots on his team to an NFC Championship game. Justin Herbert has been to the playoffs what 3 times and he doesn't have a win yet. That's concerning. Amir, your thoughts on Justin Herbert? Again, we still think he's a very good elite quarterback, just not amongst the best.
this is sad. Because you know me, you know I'm an Oregon guy. Like with my cousin Farrell playing at Oregon, I grew up loving Oregon my entire life. D'Anthony Thomas was my favorite player growing up, and I watched Herbert a lot. Throughout college, and I was high on him when he came in the league, and I'm still high on him now, just off talent alone. And it just sucks because this is the third playoff performance where he's lost it. And I'm not going to put it fully on him. I think the roster
Right.
construction offensively, right? I mean, you lose Najee Harris and Amarion Hampton.
I forgot about
Um,
Najee.
I mean, seriously, I mean, you lose your starting and backup running back for basically the entire season. You lose both tackles, having quite literally the worst offensive line in the league. I mean, that offensive line was so bad. I mean, dude, he was getting absolutely abused throughout the season. I mean,
Not to
that
not to
game
cut
against
you off, but
yeah,
I don't know if you remember when the Chargers played primetime late in the season and they were doing all the player graphics where the players introduced themselves and
yes.
they have the PFF ranks. Everybody was the bottom 2 at their position in the league. So again, I want to throw that out there. We're not hating on Justin Herbert, but Amir, continue.
I mean, that offensive line was so bad. I mean, I haven't seen an offensive line that bad in a while. I mean, we've been seeing it with Burrow every season, but dude, I mean, it felt like every play he was getting flat out abused and just tortured. I mean, instant pressure. I mean, like when they put it against the Commanders, when they put it against Jane Daniels, I think that was the first week without Slater and Joe Alt, and one of their interior guys went down. I mean, dude, he got hit every single play. They got smoked by a Commanders defense that's terrible,
Yeah,
and that's how bad the offensive line is. And it just sucks because I think he's had one playoff run where it was entirely on him. Obviously, against the Jazz, they blew that 3 touchdown lead, and I thought against the Texans, it wasn't fully on him. I mean, the offensively they had a lot of issues, but I think the problem that I have with that game is him playing as bad as he did. And remember, I don't bash guys for losing, but you got to at least look serviceable. You got to at least look decent. Like at least if you're outmatched, I want to see you put up a fight and just turn the ball over 4 times. You know what I mean? And I have him higher because I think if he was in these better situations than these guys on this list, I think he would do better. But for me, I don't want to just sit here and make it seem like this making excuses for him because I at least want to see him put up a fight or at least be decent. I mean, you brought it up. I don't think they even should have made the playoffs. I think you
yeah.
put them in position to make the playoffs. But it just sucks because it's like for him, I think out of every quarterback in the league, I say between him and Josh Allen, you have both avenues where you can put the blame on them, but at the same time you have to be grateful because they've been in some bad situations, but also some moments where it's like, now the time is here for you to perform and you still, I mean, like you struggle and it's sad.
I'll put it this way: you put Justin Herbert on that Seattle Seahawks team that we just saw, we might be talking about one of the greatest teams ever.
Yeah.
Like that's the kind of like okay, yeah, they were good, they were a dominant defense, Super Bowl champion. You put Herbert on that team, I think we're saying they're one of the greatest Super Bowl teams ever. right? Not just one side of the ball. The next tier of guys, we actually
Hmm.
have tied at four, right? So they averaged out to a four, so they're all in the same tier, rightfully so. I had Matthew Stafford at three, Joe Burrow at four, which is heartbreaking. I love Joe Burrow, and at one time I thought he had an argument to be the best quarterback in the league. And Lamar Jackson at five. Look, Stafford is playing arguably his best football of his career at 37 years old. The durability to Stafford compared to the guys that I have below him is the difference. Joe Burrow, Lamar are definitely more talented. These are guys that I think when they're on the field, they could be the best quarterback in the league on any given Sunday. But the fact that Stafford has been healthy year in and year out, and he is winning at a high level, unlike Burrow and Lamar Jackson, that was the edge. That's why I have them at three, but they're all ultimately tied in the same tier. Elite quarterbacks, they are floor elevators, and they're some of the greatest talents that we've ever seen at this position. Amir, your thoughts on these three? Because your order goes to Lamar, Joe Burrow, and Matthew Stafford.
I would say this: out of these three quarterbacks, you can switch any of them.
Yes.
I think you seriously can. And it's like people they harp too much on. Oh my gosh, why is Lamar at five? Why is Burrow at five? Why is Stafford at five? When it's like it gets to a point where it's like when guys are so elite, it's all about what you value more as far as ranking players because it's different systems, different coaching styles. They're going to be in different scenarios on a year to year basis. I mean, that's how football works. You might go into a year where the defense might be elite. You might go into a year where the defense might be terrible. And the reason why I have Lamar at three, offensively, he's been in some situations where he doesn't have a receiver, right? But then last year the defense wasn't that great to start the year off. But at the same time, and I was strongly going to put him at five. I'm not going to lie because he has been terrible in the playoffs his entire career, and people like to go ahead and bash Burrow. They like to bash Stafford for a large portion of his career. They like to bash Herbert and Josh Allen for excuses being made. I've seen a million excuses for Lamar as to why he's terrible in the playoffs, and we just watched Josh Allen turn the ball over four times against a Denver team that's far better. But we still watched Josh Allen throw for 300 yards. We still watched him throw a perfect ball to Brandon Cooks, and Brandon Cooks drops a pass and he gets picked off, and they lose the game off a play like that. We watched Burrow at least put up a historical season, almost throwing for 5,000 yards, but he has historically one of the worst defenses in history and putting his team 2 games out of playoff contention. We watched Stafford, his defense play terrible this past season, and him still almost go in Seattle and beat a historically good Seattle football team. And it's like for Lamar, we've seen good scenarios where he's played terrible. We've seen bad scenarios where he's played terrible. And for me, I have a hard time ranking him. But the reason why I have him over these guys, I think talent alone, he's still high. And I'm still somewhat grateful to him because I just couldn't imagine if he had Sean McVay and had an offensive mastermind like that, what he'd do. I think he would be absolutely a nightmare. And for Burrow, I have him at four. I think he's still better than Stafford for the same reason why I have Lamar. I just think the difference between him and Lamar is the availability.
Yeah. Well said. When it comes down to the top two spots, it came down to three names, Amir, for myself. And I want you to rank these guys. We have Patrick Mahomes, of course, down year for him. We had Josh Allen and Anthony Richardson. Where are you going? Like I think
Oh
that's a
man.
debate you got to throw out there for a video like this. Anthony Richardson, man, all the tools are on the table.
Yeah, I mean, like for me personally, I'll rank guys that's solely based off the eye test, and when I go on TikTok or
only
Instagram
only
Reels,
based on combine tape.
seriously, and like when I go on Instagram Reels or TikTok, and I see that miraculous back foot throw at home for the Colts against the Texans, I got AR clearing both of them.
Hey man, AR, Zach Wilson. This year it's gonna be Sawyer Robertson. Regardless, at number one, and I'm a bit surprised by this, Amir, so I want your thoughts on this. But you and I both have Mahomes at number one, despite the down year for Kansas City. I think he's going to bounce back. And again, ladies and gentlemen, we had him getting comparisons to Tom Brady and being one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time just a season ago. One down year should not deter you away from having him in those conversations. Let's not forget, Brady went 10 years in between Super Bowls. It's okay if Mahomes has one or two down years. So he's at number one. And then Josh Allen is at number two. You're a big Josh Allen guy. Why do you not have Josh Allen after the season we just saw, and even the year before that when he won MVP, as the number one guy?
So for Josh Allen, I love Josh Allen. Is this? I always ask this question, right? I always ask this question: when it's Josh Allen versus Lamar, right? A lot of these Ravens fans, they always say, "Oh, no, Lamar's better than Josh Allen," and I always say, everyone's better than Josh Allen. Then when it's time to actually be better than Josh Allen, he outperforms everybody. And it's like when it comes to Mahomes, we ask the same exact question. Everybody is better than Mahomes when it's time to outperform Mahomes. And I love Josh Allen, but I just think it's a gap between Mahomes and Josh Allen.
I
And it's
agree.
just certain things that you just can't measure on tape or in numbers. And Mahomes just has that it factor where he's in GOAT talks. He's on the trajectory where he's already the fourth best quarterback in history at worst, in my opinion. I think he's second. I think it's Brady, then it's Mahomes, just based off talent, just based off the it factor, just based off what we've seen from him. I mean, this dude is so much better than the rest of the league. We just watched him in 2022 put up a historical season with nobody at receiver. You have
That was post
Tyreek Hill, who
Tyreek.
just left. He just left. People sat here and said he was a merchant for Eric Bieniemy. He left. He goes ahead. He takes Jet McKinnon, freaking Travis Kelsey, old man Travis Kelsey, a rookie Isaiah Pacheco, and quite literally nobody else at receiver. So Super Bowl wins it. 2023, he's what, like the fifth seed? They win. I mean, they go 10-7.
Yeah.
Offensively, they're terrible all throughout the season. Travis Kelsey is terrible. His receiving core leads the league in drops. They go ahead on the road. They beat the one seed Baltimore, the best defense in football. Beat them. They go ahead, beat Buffalo, who was a far better team on the road. Beat them. Then they beat one of the greatest Super Bowl teams to never ever win a Super Bowl, the San Fran 49ers. So they had like 8 Pro Bowlers. They beat them,
Yeah.
and then next thing you know, they're against a Philly team who's one of the best teams in NFL history. He's one Super Bowl win away from people saying that he's up there with Brady and arguably better. And all of a sudden, he has one down year where his head coach, he's still fat. His wide receiver one, he's the criminal. Travis Kelsey, he's dating Taylor
What?
Swift. He sucks. The
Hold on.
offensive
Hold
line
on. What
sucks.
does Andy Reid being
And
fat got to do with Patrick
and
Mahomes?
and we sit here and he's one bad year and people are saying he's the third best quarterback in the league. I'm not going to hear that. Josh Allen, it's a gap between the two. It's 1 and 2. It's maybe 1A, 1B at worst, but Mahomes is still the best.
Yeah, again, I'm still trying to wrap my head. What does Andy Reid being fat got to do with Patrick Mahomes? Um, he's number three for me. Selfishly, I'm gonna hold on to the Drew Brees number two quarterback of all time until Mahomes retires, because at that point I have no choice. Which again, if Mahomes retires tomorrow, he's over Drew Brees. I'm just selfish. But ladies and gentlemen, that's it, man. Top
Okay,
32
wait,
quarterbacks in the
wait.
world.
I want to ask you, why do you have Josh on that too?
Why do I have him at two? Look, we
Well,
talked
I
about it
look.
last year.
I want to ask you, why do you have him over Stafford, Burrow, and Lamar?
Like you said, there's certain things that are you can't measure. You can't find it on a stat sheet. The ability to bring Khalil Shakir as your number one wide receiver um, to deep into the playoffs year in and year out, it's impressive. Like we talked about it. Okay, last year's episode, I had him above Burrow, and me and you have gone back and forth. I'm talking heated messages, PlayStation parties. And I was defending Joe Burrow, and I was saying, hey, I think these guys are on the same tier as quarterback as far as talent, as far as production. But Joe Burrow has taken his teams farther to higher heights. And that was my sole reason why I had Joe Burrow over Josh Allen for so many years. But last year, that game against the Rams, or excuse me, 2 years
That game
ago,
was crazy.
where he had like 6 touchdowns and single handedly won that team, won his team that game, that was the turning point for me. And for him to continue to go on with lackluster weapons and not him compared to Stafford, to Burrow, to Lamar, most notably Burrow and Lamar, he's durable. This dude's taking hits almost every other play. He's putting his body on the line, and he's still going out there and throwing for 300 yards, protecting the football outside of maybe 1 or 2 games a year. He does it all. I think, honestly, and this kind of goes against what we've said about Patrick Mahomes. I think Josh Allen is the most valuable quarterback in the league. You take Josh Allen off of the Bills, they're there with the Jets, right? We're talking about them finding a new quarterback and who they're going to be drafting. Can they trade up for Fernando Mendoza? I think you can. I think, and again, coaching has to deal with this as well. But I think you take Stafford off the Rams. I think they're still decent. I don't think they're the worst team in the league. You take Lamar off the Ravens, they can survive now. I don't think you take Josh Allen off the Bills without them immediately becoming one of the worst teams in the league. He might have that LeBron effect. That's a long-winded answer of saying that he does it all for Buffalo, and I think he does more for his team than pretty much every other quarterback in the league. Um, and I'm sure that's music to your ears, especially with all the years of arguing that we've had.
You know, I would say one thing too. Obviously, you know, for me, I have my favorite players, and we're naturally going to be biased. But I'm also the first person to criticize my favorite players, and I'm not going to put last season as like a depiction of who he is as a playoff performer because he's been historically good in the playoffs. Is that the Bills suck? I have Buffalo winning that game just because I didn't really trust Bo Nix, but I was wrong about Bo Nix. Um,
I'm a Bo
but
Nix
it's
guy.
like when you talk about durability, I mean, and I respect Lamar 100%, but Lamar has dealt with some injuries and he's just sat out the
Yeah.
season. People use it as a scapegoat, but it's like we watched Josh Allen with a partially torn UCL in 22 still get his team to the playoffs and still give them somewhat of a chance. We watched this dude with a broken foot this year. I mean, literally the season ended. He got surgery on his foot. I mean, you still, when you watch him, you couldn't even tell that he was injured. I mean, he completely messed his knee up against Jacksonville, broke his hand last year and still played through it. And it's like Lamar hurts his hamstring, misses weeks. People make excuses. He hurts his back, he misses weeks. They make excuses and say he was hurt and that's why he was playing bad. And it's like when we talk about viability, durability, that's also a huge moving point for me as to why I have him at two.
Yeah, again, I mean, he literally does everything. If you give this dude a AJ Brown this offseason, which I honestly hope they don't get AJ Brown because of the drama, it's basically just going to
Yeah.
be a bigger, more talented Stephon Diggs, which they already went through that process. But get this dude some weapons, and that doesn't mean go out there and overpay Alec Pierce this offseason. Get him a legitimate number one guy like a Terry McLaurin, and then see what the magic that he can create because this AFC is wide open, I think, year in and year out now, especially as the Chiefs dynasty has fallen. Get Josh Allen some help. Um, but with that being said, Amir, I want to ask you this question before we get out of here. Look at your list really quick. Go through it. Let me know. Who do you think takes the biggest jump this year on your rankings alone, not our average rankings? When you look at the quarterbacks, it could be Fernando Mendoza. Who do you think makes that big jump into the top 10, top five after next season and when we record this show next year?
Honestly, I think it's Cam Ward. And I know that's a basic
I love it. I love it.
analysis, but it's like we keep on bringing up Brian Daboll. He was a scapegoat. I don't think he should have been fired midseason. I mean, he gave Daniel Jones a career year. He developed Josh Allen. Josh Allen was a major. He quite literally had a lot of issues coming out of college, accuracy issues, turning the ball over issues, playing a reckless playing style, and he made him accurate. I mean, completely made him accurate. He went from turning the ball over a bunch to then throwing for like 35 touchdowns, and he took care of the football. Jackson Dart, another guy who had a really reckless play style, and he actually looked like a serviceable quarterback as a rookie. And I thought he started way too soon. He made him look really good. And now he's getting Cam Ward, where Cam Ward, I think they'll go and draft some weapons in the offseason. I think they'll at least boost his offensive lineup and get the run game going a bit. And I could see him jumping up to like that top 15 to top 10 range.
Yeah,
Like,
I think
seriously.
Cam Ward's the answer. Especially again with the coaching additions that they've made, and hopefully they get aggressive and maybe bring back an AJ Brown. So Cam Ward has a number one guy there. I think he definitely has one of the best chances to make a huge leap going into next season. Another guy's Jordan Love. I think he's going to be the number one consensus quarterback after next year.